Fritz was lecturing the sauté pan about consistency when the doorbell cut him off mid-syllable. It wasn't the usual chime either. Someone held the button down as if hoping to bore through the brass. Wolfe's eyebrows, visible over the edge of his Times, rose 1/16 of an inch. Mine probably did more. "I'll get it," I said, since I was the only one in the room who ever did. The man on the stoop looked like he'd taken the wrong exit from Despair and ended up on East 35th by mistake. 40, maybe, with a city pallor that made his collar too bright. He clutched a brown envelope in both hands, the way a drowning man holds driftwood. "Mr. Wolfe," he said, "please. It's urgent." "Congratulations," I told him. That's the only word that ever gets through that door without an appointment. I let him in before Wolfe could veto it from the dining room. Inside, he hesitated under the weight of orchids, Persian rugs, and whatever Wolfe was radiating from his chair. Wolfe didn't look up. He murmured, "Put him there, Archie," as though I were setting down a crate of lemons. The stranger obeyed gravity into the red leather chair. His envelope hit his knee like it was heavier than it looked. "My name's Kenneth Dewar," he said. "I don't know where else to go." "You've chosen poorly," Wolfe said. "Yet you are here. Proceed." Dewar swallowed. "A man followed me for 3 nights. Same one. Grey coat. I confronted him yesterday morning near Bryant Park. He said he'd stop only if I delivered this." He tapped the envelope. He told me to give it to Mr. Nero Wolfe and say it was from the stranger on East 35th Street. That line nudged my spine. We were sitting on East 35th Street. "Archie," Wolfe said, still not looking up. "Take it." I took it. No handwriting, just a red wax seal the color of a stoplight having a bad day. I waited for permission, got none, and opened it anyway. Inside was a single sheet of paper, unlined, bearing 5 typed words. "He will kill again tonight." Dewar's hands trembled like they were practicing semaphore. "I swear I don't know what it means. I thought, since it mentions killing, you should have it." Wolfe placed the Times neatly aside and set his bulk upright. That move alone meant the situation had cleared the first hurdle of importance. "Mr. Dewar," he said, "your decision, while ill-considered, is not without merit. Whom will he kill?" "I don't know. Dewar's breath fractured. "I haven't told anyone. Please, I just need to be safe." "Phooey." Wolfe's snort was half judgment, half punctuation. "Safety is the illusion of those who delegate responsibility. You have brought me a puzzle, not protection." I said, "You could call the cops, Mr. Dewar. Lieutenant Kramer loves getting anonymous murder forecasts. They make his day." Dewar shook his head violently. "No police. The man warned me. If I spoke, others would die. He said you'd understand." That was new. Homicidal etiquette with a referral system. Wolfe studied him, eyes narrowing until they were 2 brown coins. "Describe your follower." "Tall, grey coat, gloves. He never showed his face. Last night he vanished at 5th Avenue. "Did he speak again?" "No, only the once." "Then, Archie," Wolfe said, "we must deduce whether this message is premonition, confession, or diversion." "Diversion from what?" I asked. "From the event it purports to predict. If one declares a killing before committing it, one either seeks prevention or misdirection." Dewar leaned forward. "Please, will you help me?" Wolfe's fingers formed a steeple. "Perhaps. First, remain still. Your agitation fatigues me. Second, you will provide every scrap of your past week's movements, down to the trivial." Yes, of course." I reached for my notebook. Wolfe reached for his beer. The hierarchy of necessities remained intact. As Dewar began reciting where he'd eaten and what cabs he'd taken, I couldn't shake the sense that something else was listening, the kind of silence that tilts a room. When he mentioned a visit to a gallery on Madison called the Larkin Collection, Wolfe's eyelids twitched. "Larkin," he said softly, "was found dead 2 nights ago." Dewar froze. "What?" "Yes," Wolfe said. "A minor note in the papers. Heart failure during dinner. Convenient for the heart." Dewar's knuckles went white on the envelope fragments. "Then maybe he—" The phone rang. I jumped. Dewar flinched. Wolfe simply said, "Answer it, Archie." I did. A man's voice, low and sure. "Tell Mr. Wolfe the second message has been delivered." Then the line clicked dead. I stared at the receiver. "He says there's a sequel," I told Wolfe. Wolfe's eyes glinted. "Indeed. Then the play has entered its second act without an audience." He motioned for Dewar to stay put and told me, "Bring the envelope here. We shall test whether its author intends to inform or to perform." I crossed the room, the envelope crinkling faintly between my fingers, and set it on Wolfe's desk blotter. He eyed it as if it were a suspicious mushroom sprouting in the wrong season. Dewar's breathing hadn't slowed. He looked like he might bolt if the doorknob twitched. Wolfe tapped the edge of the envelope once. "The second message, Archie?" Just what he said. Delivered. No details, no address, no signature. He hung up before I could sound friendly. A pity you are not an operator with the telephone exchange. Your curiosity would serve you better there." I grinned. "And miss this show? Not a chance." He extended a finger, not at me, but toward Dewar. "Mr. Dewar, remove your coat." The man hesitated, then obeyed. The lining caught a streak of light from the lamp, showing damp patches where fear or fog, or both, had soaked through. Wolfe studied him as though measuring the moral content of his perspiration. "You have no notion who sent you here, yet you obeyed." I was terrified. He said people would die. "People always do," Wolfe muttered, "but not often by appointment." I fetched an ashtray, though no one was smoking. Sometimes a man needs something to stare at besides guilt. "Let us proceed rationally," Wolfe said. "The message predicts another killing tonight. Its phrasing implies recurrence, not novelty. Therefore, a previous death occurred within an interval, short enough for memory to sustain dread. Mr. Larkin's demise 2 nights ago fits that contour." Dewar licked his lips, but I didn't know him personally. I only went to the gallery. There was a showing of industrial design sketches. I spoke to his assistant for a minute. "Her name?" Wolfe asked. "Clara Minton. She arranged the exhibit. I barely." He stopped as the phone rang again, slicing the air like a switchblade. I reached it before Wolfe could lift an eyebrow. "Goodwin speaking." Silence first, then the same male voice, faint and even. "You open the envelope. Tell Mr. Wolfe he has 4 hours." The line clicked off. I hung up slowly. He's got a flair for deadlines. 4 hours for what? "That," Wolfe said, "is the nucleus of our obligation. Sit down, Mr. Dewar. If this messenger knows of your visit here, our privacy has been violated. Archie, close the curtains." I did. The orchids took on a sickly glow under the lamps, like they were eavesdropping too. Wolfe leaned back, fingers steepled. The phrases used, delivered, 4 hours. Indicate orchestration, not random terror. A program is being followed. "Could be a prank with class," I suggested. He shot me a look that could blanch concrete. "A prank requiring surveillance of this house, knowledge of my name and familiarity with East 35th Street? Improbable." Dewar's voice cracked. "He said I'd be watched. Maybe he's outside now." I moved to the window, parted the curtain with 2 fingers. Rain had started. Soft, persistent, making halos around the street lamps. No one visible, but the sort of night that could hide 3 ghosts and a milk truck without effort. Wolfe said, "We cannot act upon silhouettes in weather. What we require is relevance. Mr. Dewar, think. Did anything unusual occur at that gallery? He shook his head. No. I looked at sketches, had a drink, left early. Who saw you leave? I don't know. The crowd was thinning. Wolfe grunted. You are a remarkably incurious witness to your own predicament. That stung him. Look, I came here for help. You think I invented this? I think, Wolfe replied, you have told me less than half of what you know. The man's eyes flicked toward the door, calculating exits. I stepped between him and it, casually enough to make the point without making a scene. He slumped. All right. I was there to meet someone, not Larkin. A buyer, private. She called herself Mrs. Fenley. Said she'd heard of my work. Your work? Wolfe asked. I'm an illustrator, technical manuals, machinery cross-sections, that sort of thing. And this Mrs. Fenley wished to purchase your drawings. She said they interested her husband, who collected, well, blueprints, old ones. I thought it odd, but the fee was generous. And you accepted? Of course. She never showed. When I asked Miss Minton, she said no one by that name was expected. Wolfe's lids drooped halfway. An invented pretext to ensure your presence. Ingenious, if banal. I said, maybe our stranger wanted him there for a front-row seat to Larkin's heart failure. Dewar stared. You think I was used? I think, I said, you're trending popular with killers who send mail. Wolfe's chair creaked under a fractional lean forward. Archie, telephone Saul Panzer. Instruct him to watch the block discreetly and note any idling vehicles. Then, Mr. Dewar, you will write down every address you have visited since Sunday. While Dewar scribbled, I dialed Saul and gave him the short version. His response was as dry as toast. 4 hours. That's tight. I'll circle the block. He hung up without ceremony. When I turned back, Dewar had finished. Wolfe scanned the list. A modest geography. Office, apartment, 1 tavern, 1 gallery. If a pursuer followed you through these, he wished you to notice. Therefore, intimidation was his instrument, not stealth. That makes him either confident or theatrical, I said. Or both, Wolfe murmured. Archie, bring me the city directory. I fetched it from the side shelf, its spine cracked from years of Wolfe's habit of verifying human existence. He flipped pages with a delicacy he rarely granted people. Larkin, Frederick A. Yes. And Minton, Clara, resides West 71st. We may infer the gallery kept modest staff. Archie, call her. The operator put me through after a few minutes. A woman's voice answered, low and crisp. Miss Minton, this is Archie Goodwin, assistant to Nero Wolfe. A pause, then, is this about Mr. Larkin? It could be. Were you aware someone might have wanted him dead? She exhaled into the line. I've been asked that twice already, by the police. They said it was natural causes. Sometimes nature needs coaching. Did you know a Kenneth Dewar? Dewar? Oh yes, he came to the opening. Quiet man. He asked about Mrs. Fenley. Did that name mean anything to you? No, I thought he was confused. Then Mr. Larkin collapsed and everything stopped. Her voice faltered. Are you saying it wasn't natural? I'm not saying anything yet, I told her. But if someone asks you for a second opinion tonight, call me first. I gave her the number and hung up. Wolfe's gaze waited. I relayed the gist. He nodded. Once. So, confirmation. A fictitious invitation leading to a coincidental death. Mr. Dewar, we are being manipulated through a narrative of someone else's authorship. Dewar blinked. I don't understand. Few protagonists do, Wolfe said. Archie, check the street. I went to the window again. Headlights glowed in the rain. A dark sedan idled opposite, its wipers pacing like metronomes. Sedan. No cab markings. No movement. Saul? Wolfe asked. Could be. But Saul usually parks competence, not suspense. The phone rang for the third time, shriller now. I answered. Goodwin. A different voice this time. Female, breath quick. Tell Mr. Wolfe the message was true. They found another body, Midtown. Then a click. I turned, holding the receiver a second longer than needed. Body in Midtown. Anonymous soprano broke the news. Wolfe's mouth tightened. So the prophecy fulfills itself. He rose, heavy and deliberate, the chair sighing in relief. Mr. Dewar, remain where you are. Archie, get your coat. We are going out. I stared. Since when do you leave the chair for a fresh corpse? Since it arrived by correspondence, he said, and we have 4 hours left to learn whether our informant is chronicler or killer. He moved toward the elevator like an ocean deciding to climb stairs. I followed, wondering which was stranger, the threat, the messenger, or Nero Wolfe voluntarily stepping into the rain. The elevator cage groaned as it descended, and Wolfe's shoulders filled the narrow space like a wall that had decided to travel. Fritz had appeared from the kitchen doorway, wiping his hands on a towel and looking ready to protest. Wolfe waved him off with a single motion that translated roughly to feed the orchids and mind your own soul. The front door opened to the kind of rain that meant business, cold, clean, and convinced of its purpose. I hustled Wolfe to the curb where the sedan still idled, its exhaust blurring the lamplight. A figure stepped out, umbrella angled against the wind. Saul Panzer. Reliable as guilt and twice as quiet. You're moving early, he said, eyes flicking to Wolfe. He's moving at all, I said. That's early enough for any calendar. Saul's mouth twitched. Bodies at 42nd and Madison. Ambulance still there. Beat cops holding the scene. Wolfe grunted and eased his bulk into the back seat like a glacier negotiating climate change. I got behind the wheel, Saul's car, and took us east, wipers clapping like impatient hands. The ride was short, but silent except for Wolfe's controlled breathing, which could have registered as baritone on a phonograph. When we pulled up, the red pulse of police lamps made the rain look arterial. Uniforms fenced off the sidewalk. A man lay half-covered by a tarp beside a lamp-post, and even in that half-second glance, I recognized the expensive shoes that didn't belong to night puddles. Lieutenant Kramer's voice came before the man himself. Goodwin? What the hell are you? Oh, don't tell me he's actually here. He's actually here, I said. Don't faint. I'll need your badge number for the coroner. Kramer's bulk loomed out of the drizzle, cigar clenched in his teeth like it was his last hope of warmth. He peered past me, disbelief taking a lap across his face. Wolfe, in the rain. Somebody take a picture. It's a federal miracle. Wolfe stayed inside the car, window cracked. Spare me your astonishment, Kramer. We were invited. By who? St. Peter. By circumstance. Who is he? Kramer jerked his head toward the body. Name's Collier, investment broker, Midtown address. No ID missing, no wallet gone. But he's got a puncture just under the rib cage. Thin blade, clean entry. Dead before he hit the sidewalk. Any witnesses? Wolfe asked. 2 clerks heard a shout, looked out too late. Rain covered any footprints. You know the drill. I crouched near the tarp edge and lifted it an inch. Yair's face was pale enough to light a lamp. Mouth twisted mid-word. What struck me wasn't the wound. It was the folded scrap of paper pinned under his lapel by the rain. I took it out with 2 fingers and passed it to Kramer. He unrolled it, squinting. He lied for her. He looked at me. Somebody's writing sonnets again. Wolfe's voice came through the window like a lecturer correcting a student. Not sonnets, Lieutenant, progress reports. The first message predicted death. This one comments on it. A diarist with a homicidal quill. Kramer turned the paper over. Blank. You've seen one of these? Indeed, Wolfe said. Delivered to my house. It read, he will kill again tonight. Kramer's jaw flexed. And you waited until now to mention it? I prefer evidence to drama, Wolfe said. Now that the prophecy has matured, I consider the evidence extant. I said, you might want to start the clock, Lieutenant. The killer said we've got 4 hours. Kramer's eyes narrowed. Since when do you take appointments from killers? Since one keeps his word, I said. He snorted and signaled a patrolman. Get that note to the lab, and Goodwin, keep your boss from contaminating my crime scene. If he steps on one cigarette butt, I'll frame him for the Great Fire of Rome. I saluted him with 2 fingers and got back in the car. Wolfe hadn't moved, but his eyes were working behind half-closed lids. Archie, he said quietly. The phrase, he lied for her. Who among our dramatis personae possesses a her worth lying for? Could be our gallery assistant, Clara Minton, or Mrs. Fenley, if she exists, or Duer's imagination, if it's on salary. Possibly, but our author's handwriting, typed or printed. Typed both times? Same machine, I'd bet. Then its owner is methodical and intends continuity. Good. Continuity is the ally of detection. He paused, then added, we will return to the brownstone. I will not divine in a puddle. The drive back felt longer, though the clock hands disagreed. Duer was still in the office when we came in, standing near the desk like a man caught waiting for judgment. He turned, saw Wolfe's expression, and decided silence was safer than small talk. Wolfe dropped into his chair with a sound like gravity applauding itself. Another death, Mr. Duer. This time foretold. You may confirm that your prophet is neither jesting nor benevolent. Duer's eyes widened. Someone else is dead. Yes, I said. Broker named Yar. Any connection ring a bell? He shook his head violently. No, I don't know anyone in finance. Everyone knows someone in finance, I said. Even you have to pay rent. Archie, Wolfe cut in. The sarcasm is ornamental. We must determine whether the link lies through Larkin's circle or Duer's. I nodded. Then we started overlap. Larkin's gallery. Precisely. Call Miss Minton again. Inform her that events have matured beyond privacy. I dialed. The operator took forever, the rain still drumming against the windows. When she answered, her voice was thinner now. Yes? Goodwin again. We just came from a scene that may interest you. Do you know a Collier? A gasp, then hesitation. Yes, he bought 2 sketches from Mr. Larkin last month. Why? He's been killed. Same anonymous calling card as Larkin, if you can call prophecy a card. Oh, dear God. Her voice wavered. Then it's all connected. You're ahead of us, I said. Connected how? I don't know exactly. But Mr. Larkin mentioned he was worried about a woman. Something about forged designs being sold abroad. I thought he meant fashion sketches, but maybe not. Wolfe lifted a finger. I relayed the phrase forged designs aloud. He said, ask her if any of Larkin's associates were engineers. I did. She answered after a pause. There was a man, Mr. Yare, actually. He invested in design patents. Said Larkin owed him a commission. Thank you, Miss Minton. Stay put tonight and keep your doors locked. If anyone brings you an envelope, burn it unread. I hung up. Wolfe's brows knitted. So, a chain. Larkin, Yare, and Duer, all bound by drawings and deceit. The signature, he lied for her, may refer to an accomplice female. Perhaps the mythical Mrs. Fenley. She could be more myth than Mrs., I said. Or she could be next. Wolfe frowned. No. Our author stages killings to express moral sentences. He lied for her as accusation, not prelude. The next message will judge another. Then we're watching a killer with an editorial calendar. Succinctly put, he reached for the phone. Kramer must be informed of this connective tissue before he arrests. The wrong organ, Kramer answered on the second ring. The exchange lasted 5 minutes, heavy on growls and shorter on gratitude. When Wolfe replaced the receiver, his tone was colder. He intends to assign additional men to guard the gallery. Futile, but necessary. Dewar, who had been shrinking by inches, finally blurted, "What do I do? I'm next, aren't I?" Wolfe closed his eyes. "Possibly. Therefore you will remain here under Archie's observation. Fritz will prepare accommodations less luxurious than fatality, but more secure than panic." "I can't stay here." "You can, and will," Wolfe said, voice like granite with vowels. "Should another message arrive, I must have an audience ready to read it." I said, "That's cozy. You, me, and the forecast of murder." Wolfe opened his eyes again, the brown calm of calculation returning. "Archie, ensure the doors are bolted. Then fetch the camera from the drawer." "The camera?" "Yes. Our correspondent enjoys typography. If he delivers again, we shall have his fingerprints. Literal or otherwise." Outside, thunder rolled like the world clearing its throat. I crossed to the window and saw Saul's sedan still opposite, wipers frozen now, engine gone. A shape moved near the lamp-post, then vanished between shadows. I turned back. "He's still out there, or someone is." Wolfe nodded once. Then the next act approaches its cue. The orchids flickered in the lamplight as I kept my eyes on that shadow outside. The shape reappeared, slimmer now, moving closer to the curb before the street swallowed it whole again. I turned from the window, water tapping against the glass like fingertips spelling Morse. Wolfe didn't look up. "Describe him." "Hard to, through rain. Medium height, dark coat. Could be Saul, could be St. Peter, could be trouble." "Probability leans toward the third," he murmured. "Mr. Dewar, you remain stationary. Archie, fetch my notebook. Observation requires recording." I passed him the thick ledger from the side drawer. Dewar's nerves clicked audibly, the sound of teeth pretending to be brave. "You think he's out there watching me?" "Watching us," I said. "But don't take it personally. We're just the better view." The phone rang before his answer, the sound slicing through the tension like a paper cut. I grabbed it. "Nero Wolfe's residence." Saul's voice came steady and low. "Someone left a parcel at your gate. Small, wrapped in brown paper. I didn't touch it." "Any delivery truck?" "No, dropped by hand. A woman, maybe. Tall coat, hood up. She vanished east on 35th. I glanced at Wolfe. He lifted his brows. A permission signal. "Bring it in carefully," I told Saul. "No fireworks, please." "Understood." Hanging up, I relayed the message. Dewar sagged into the chair like his spine had gone missing. "Another note," he whispered. "I can feel it." Wolfe closed his notebook and folded his hands. An envelope would suffice for words. A parcel implies elaboration. "Fritz." The kitchen door opened instantly. "Yes, sir." "Prepare the rubber gloves and tray. We are expecting something of dubious virtue." Fritz nodded and disappeared. I had time to check the locks again before the buzzer sounded. Saul's silhouette appeared against the frosted glass, parcel under his arm. He stepped in, eyes scanning every corner before handing it to me. "Found it right outside the gate," he said. "No address, no seal." I placed it on the tray. Brown paper, string, faint wet marks from the rain. Fritz hovered like a butler at a bomb disposal. Wolfe gestured for space. "Open it, Archie." I slit the paper carefully. Inside was a black velvet box the size of a paperback. It creaked open to reveal a gold pocket watch, old, ornate, and still ticking. The minute hand was painted red. On the inside lid, a slip of card read in block type, "When the hour strikes 12, the truth ends." Dewar made a sound halfway between a gasp and a prayer. Wolfe leaned forward. "Fascinating. We are now given both time and theater. The author expects us to listen." I checked the dial. 10:02. "We've got less than 2 hours to keep truth on payroll." "Archie," Wolfe said, Examine the box. Velvet, well made, no maker's mark. The watch bore an engraving, to FL, from CM, for time well spent. Larkin and Minton, I said. Indeed, Wolfe replied. A token of collaboration turned epitaph. Saul exhaled softly. You want me to trace the shop? No. Stay on the street. Whoever left it will wish to confirm our discovery. Watch the watchers. He nodded and slipped out as quietly as the rain itself. Wolfe turned to Dewar. You are the hinge of this contraption, sir. Your acquaintances die. Their mementos find us. That suggests intention, yours or theirs. I swear I didn't know. Spare me. Truth will expire at midnight, but mendacity is eternal. Archie, note the engraving. It confirms Miss Minton's connection to both victims. I scribbled it down, wondering how many more clues would arrive with gift wrap. Wolfe closed his eyes briefly, thinking. The murderer's messages serve dual purpose. To terrify and to narrate. He directs us toward revelation through fear. Therefore, he desires audience and comprehension. Which means he's close, I said. Nobody writes fan mail from across the ocean. Proximity and obsession are cousins, Wolfe replied. Archie, telephone Miss Minton again. Her voice trembled when she answered. Yes? This is Goodwin. I need to ask, did you ever give Mr. Larkin a watch? A pause. Then, yes, for his birthday. But it was stolen months ago. Why? Because it just made an encore performance on our doorstep. Her breath caught audibly. Then he took it back. Looks like someone did, and whoever that was wants the rest of us counting down. I'm coming over, she said suddenly. Wolfe, hearing through the receiver, barked, No! Loud enough to shake the orchids. I echoed it into the phone. You're safer where you are. Trust me, this address attracts bullets tonight. But I can help. Stay put, I said, and hung up before Wolfe's veins burst from exasperation. He glowered at me. You were gentle. I would not have been. She sounded determined, he said. If she's half as stubborn as you, she'll be here anyway. Then we must be prepared. He adjusted his vest. Fritz, secure the back door. Archie, load the camera. If she or anyone else delivers further dramatics, we shall immortalize them. Rain hammered harder, and the house seemed to shrink under the weight of expectation. I wound the camera, checked the flash. Dewar hovered by the desk, watching the ticking watch like it might announce his obituary. The minutes crawled. At 10:30, the buzzer rang again. Not Saul's short buzz, 3 sharp presses in sequence. Wolfe's eyes cut to mine. Miss Minton, or the stranger himself. I moved to the door, hand on the knob. Stay ready, I told them, then opened it an inch. A woman stood there, coat dripping, eyes wide as coins. Miss Minton, or what was left of her composure. She pushed past me before I could protest. I had to come, she said breathlessly. Someone was following me. Dewar rose, pale as parchment. You, Clara! Her gaze found him, startled. You were at the gallery. He told me you died. Wolfe's voice sliced through the air. Who told you? She turned to him slowly. The man who called himself Mr. Fenley. That name ricocheted around the room. Wolfe's nostrils flared. Describe him. Tall, grey coat? Gloves? Her voice cracked. He said he was Mrs. Fenley's husband, that you'd understand. He gave me this. She fumbled in her pocket and pulled out a folded letter, edges wet. I took it, unfolded carefully. Typed words again, but new ink. The next lie will silence the witness. The watch will mock it. Wolfe's jaw set. Archie, note the time. 10:45. Then, by his schedule, we have 75 minutes to prevent silence. Miss Minton, sit. You are now both witness and target. She obeyed shakily. Dewar watched her with the dawning horror of a man realizing the script he's in ends badly. The watch ticked on, loud now, as if aware of its supporting role. Wolfe leaned back, eyes closed, mind visibly sorting threads. Our killer constructs morality plays. Each act punishes deceit. Larkin's falsified art, Yare's financial fraud. Mr. Dewar, perhaps your lie remains undiscovered. I haven't lied. Then prove it before midnight. Wolfe's eyes opened, sharp as razors. Archie, call Saul. Tell him the playhouse is full. Anyone approaches this. Dewar. We photograph before they breathe. I reached for the phone, but before my hand touched it, the buzzer rang again. One single press, long and deliberate. The buzzer's hum hung in the air, long enough to make every heart in the room beat out of step with it. I was nearest the door, and Wolfe didn't need to say anything. His eyes gave the order. I moved toward the vestibule, each step feeling like it might announce a new corpse. Through the frosted glass, I caught a blurred outline, tall, angular, motionless. Whoever it was hadn't come to borrow sugar. I cracked the door open a few inches. Yes? The figure didn't move. Then a hand emerged from the dark gloved, holding an envelope. It slid it through the gap. No words, no sound. I caught the faint smell of rain and metal before the figure turned and disappeared into the night. I shut the door fast and locked it. Delivery, I said, holding the envelope up like it might explode. Wolfe's voice came steady. Place it on the desk. Use the gloves. Fritz brought them, trembling slightly. He had the kind of nerves that could plate a souffle under cannon fire, but not this sort of tension. I slipped the gloves on, broke the seal, and slid out another card. Same paper stock, same typewriter ribbon. The message was shorter than a heartbeat. One of them lies now. Dewar's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Miss Minton clutched her coat tighter, her knuckles bone-white. Wolfe read the words without touching the paper, then exhaled through his nose, the sound soft and volcanic. Archie, he said, look at our clock. The gold watch on the tray read 11:02. He has advanced his schedule, Wolfe murmured. He no longer promises death at midnight. He announces deceit in progress. I scanned the room. Then the lie's not in the past. It's happening right now. Precisely. Wolfe's gaze swept from Dewar to Miss Minton. Mr. Dewar, Miss Minton, one of you is withholding a truth essential to our understanding. Which of you, I wonder, considers silence a lesser sin? Dewar stood abruptly. I've told you everything. Sit down, Wolfe said, the tone of a man adjusting gravity. Dewar sat. Miss Minton's voice came out thin. I swear I don't know what else you want from me. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Then we shall deduce. Archie, open the watch's back plate. I pried it gently with the letter opener. Inside the casing, behind the mechanism, was a folded photograph. I slid it out and spread it flat. The image was of a man and woman standing before a mural of blueprints, Larkin and Clara Minton. She looked younger, smiling like she hadn't learned fear yet. In the lower corner, faintly visible, were the words, Prototype B, Confidential. Wolfe tapped the photo with a forefinger. Miss Minton, explain this. Her color drained fast. It was part of a commission, she said. A design Larkin developed for a client overseas. I handled the sketches. Nothing illegal. And yet, Wolfe said, Larkin and Yare are dead, both connected to those designs. A watch stolen, then returned as prophecy, and now an accusation of deceit. I didn't kill anyone. Wolfe's brows lifted a millimeter. I did not accuse you of killing, merely of lying. Dewar leaned forward suddenly. She's lying about the blueprints. His voice cracked. I saw them. They weren't for design. They were for weapons components. Larkin bragged about it. He said people would pay anything for technology nobody should own. Wolfe's attention pivoted to him. How did you come to know that, Mr. Dewar? He told me. The night of the exhibition, He wanted me to draw the diagrams in perspective to disguise the function. He said no one would suspect art. That, Wolfe said dryly, was an underestimation of homicide's literacy. Miss Minton sprang up. That's not true. They were architectural renderings. I saw them. Sit down, I said, stepping between them. This isn't amateur night at the courthouse. Wolfe interlaced his fingers. You both claim knowledge, yet your accounts conflict. The killer's statement, one of them lies now, pertains directly to this exchange. Therefore, our observer is aware of this room. Dua's eyes darted toward the windows. He's watching us? He has been from the beginning, Wolfe said. Archie, draw the curtains fully and turn off one lamp. If he watches, let him strain for it. I did as told. The room dimmed to the glow of a single desk lamp, reflecting off Wolfe's eyes like brass coins. Fritz's voice wavered from the doorway. Shall I fetch Lieutenant Kramer, sir? Not yet, Wolfe said. The intruder communicates by performance. To call the police now would interrupt his script. We must let him reveal the next cue. At that moment, the phone rang again. Everyone froze. I picked it up. Goodwin. The same man's voice, calm and unmistakable. The liar will not see 12. Then silence. I set the receiver down gently. He's keeping his word count efficient. Wolfe looked at the watch again. The second hand glided toward 11:15. Archie, where is Saul? Still watching the street, I can signal him. Do so. Tell him to locate anyone within sight lines to this room. I grabbed my coat, slipped through the front, and signaled with the pocket torch once through the iron gate. The rain had weakened to drizzle, and the street lay slick and empty. A dark figure crossed near the opposite curb. Saul, lifting a hand in reply. Then his attention shifted sharply toward the corner. He drew something from his pocket and moved fast, vanishing into the gloom. I went back inside. He's got eyes on someone, I said. Then, Wolfe said, our author approaches his final page. Miss Minton's hands were shaking. Please, can't we just leave? Get away from this house? You may, Wolfe said coolly, but I advise against it. A hunter expects his prey to flee. He is less adept when they remain still. The room was thick with silence until a faint metallic click broke it, the sound of the watch's minute hand advancing. 11:30. The ticking grew louder, unnatural, as if amplified by the tension itself. Dua wiped his forehead. If he's coming, we can't just sit here. You may stand if you prefer, I said. Just don't block my view of the door. A knock came. Not the buzzer, not a timid tap, but a deliberate rap of knuckles. 3 short, 1 long. The pattern matched the earlier buzzes. Wolfe's lips pressed together. Archie, open it halfway. Camera ready. I gripped the knob, snapped the flash gun into place, and pulled the door open just enough to frame whoever stood there. The flash went off. White burst, a curse, a startled shout, and then I saw him, tall, grey coat, gloves, face obscured by the brim of his hat. He swung his arm up, not with a gun but a folded piece of paper, flung it inside, and ran. I dropped the camera and bolted after him, boots splashing through puddles. He turned the corner toward Lexington, fast but heavy. I gained a few yards before a cab screeched past, blocking my view. When I cleared it, he was gone, melted into the city's veins. I jogged back, soaked and short on patience. The paper lay where it had landed, damp around the edges. Wolfe hadn't moved from his chair. Read it, he said. I unfolded it. A single line again. Truth ends at 11:45. Wolfe's eyes flicked to the watch. The second hand was crawling toward it. He spoke slowly. We have 15 minutes, and our correspondent has not failed a promise yet. Miss Minton gasped. He's going to kill one of us. Not one, Wolfe said. The one who lies. Archie, the light. I flicked it on full, bathing the room in yellow glare. Dua blinked, startled. Wolfe's gaze pinned him. "Mr. Dewar, if your account is true, why did you not show the sketches to the authorities?" I was afraid. They'd think I was involved." "And you are," Wolfe said. "Your fear implies guilt, not caution. You did the renderings, sold them, and when Larkin grew anxious, you silenced him. The prophecy's author merely reports your own conscience." "That's insane." Dewar stood, trembling. "You can't prove—" A gunshot cracked from the window. The glass burst inward, showering the desk. Dewar staggered once, eyes wide, and fell. The watch stopped ticking. The echo of the shot was still bouncing around the room when I hit the floor beside Dewar, the smell of gunpowder mixed with rain and panic. He was face down, blood creeping out from under his shoulder and spreading toward Wolfe's rug like it was on a deadline of its own. Miss Minton screamed, a raw, tearing sound that stopped as fast as it started. "Stay down," I snapped, already crawling to the shattered window. Glass glittered across the sill, and the night beyond looked clean again, as if nothing had happened. The street was empty except for the hissing rain on pavement and the dim outline of Saul's sedan 2 doors down. Wolfe's voice cut through the air, clipped and steady. "Archie, alive?" "Barely, but yes," I said. "Dewar's less fortunate." "Describe." "Shot through the back. Close enough to ruin his chances at conversation." "Then he will not contradict me," Wolfe said grimly. "Fritz, lights, curtains." "Miss Minton, sit." Fritz rushed in, eyes wide, towel still over his arm like a flag of surrender. He turned off the lamp nearest the window and drew the curtains with shaking hands. I checked Dewar's pulse out of habit. Nothing. His body was cooling fast. Saul's knock came next. 2 short raps, urgent. I opened the door, letting him in out of the rain. His face was all sharp lines and rain streaks. "I heard it," he said. "Shot from the alley behind the house. I chased, but whoever it was knew the turns. Gone before I hit the corner." "Rifle?" I asked. "Sounded small caliber. Silencer, maybe." "Neat," I muttered. "Clean job. Quick getaway. He's a busy man." Wolfe hadn't moved from his chair. His eyes were fixed on the stopped watch. "He has kept his promise again," he said softly. "Truth ends indeed at 11:45. Saul followed my line of sight to Dewar's body. "So, the liar's gone." Wolfe's chin dipped once. If that was his lie. The question now is whether we have lost the killer or merely another pawn. Miss Minton was sobbing quietly into her hands. The kind of crying that wasn't looking for sympathy, just oxygen. Wolfe addressed her without looking. "Compose yourself. If you faint, it will only delay our comprehension." She raised her head, face streaked with tears. "He said he didn't do anything. You accused him, and then he's dead." "Facts are indifferent to fairness," Wolfe said. "Archie, telephone Kramer. We require official interference before the body grows presumptive." I picked up the receiver. "Lieutenant Kramer, please." The operator didn't have to ask who. By now, she probably had our number memorized from previous disasters. Kramer answered with a growl. "Goodwin? Tell me you're not adding to my body count tonight." "Wish I could. But Dewar just took one through the back, right here in Wolfe's office." The roar on the other end could have melted the paint. "What? Who pulled the trigger?" "That's the mystery. The shot came through the window. No gun, no face." "I'm on my way," he barked and slammed the line dead. I hung up. "Kramer's inbound with thunder." Wolfe's lips curved, not quite a smile. "Let us hope he brings lightning as well. I've had enough of darkness." I moved to inspect the shattered pane. The hole was neat, low, angled. Shooter was close, 30 feet maybe, across the street or in the alley window. Saul crouched beside me. Could have been the same guy I saw earlier near the lamppost. He was waiting for a signal. I looked at the velvet box on the desk. The watch inside stopped dead at 11:45. He had one. Wolfe gestured toward the tray. Do not touch the watch again. It has become evidence, and evidence is contagious. Then you'll have to explain that to Kramer, I said. He will relish the sermon, Wolfe replied dryly. The siren came soon after, slicing through the night like a judgment call. 2 uniforms followed Kramer into the room, dripping, glaring, and ready for arrests. Kramer took one look at Dewar and groaned. Couldn't you just once have a quiet evening, Wolfe? I tried, Wolfe said, but visitors insist on dying uninvited. Kramer ignored the wit. You, Goodwin, tell me what happened before my ulcers finish the story. I gave him the short version, the envelope, the threat, the timing, the gunshot. He took it in, jaw tightening with each line. So the shooter knows your schedule, your house, and your windows. Perfect. He turned on Wolfe. You're going to sit on the rest of the notes until the morgue collects the furniture, aren't you? I will sit because that is my habit, Wolfe said, but I do not withhold. You may examine the watch and its accompanying messages. They will reward your curiosity with more questions. Kramer snorted. Sir, you always talk like a thesaurus with blood pressure. He motioned to the uniforms. Bag the watch. Photograph everything. Fritz hovered by the door, pale as wallpaper paste. Wolfe waved him off. You may retire, Fritz. Lock the kitchen door. And no breakfast for me tomorrow. The appetite will be detained. Once the body was covered and the flashbulbs started popping, the house looked like a crime museum. Kramer ran a hand down his face. So, we've got a dead artist, a dead broker, and now your visitor. You sure know how to keep a case balanced. Balance is the essence of art, Wolfe murmured. Kramer ignored him. Miss Minton, you're coming downtown for questioning. You too, Goodwin, if I decide you're withholding. Wolfe's eyes opened a notch wider. Miss Minton remains here. Oh, does she? Yes, Wolfe said evenly. She is bait, and bait functions best in context. Remove her, and you scatter what little order remains. Kramer stared at him like he was choosing between arguing and arresting. Fine, but you're responsible if she vanishes or explodes. She will do neither, Wolfe said. After Kramer stomped off to confer with the uniforms, I leaned toward Wolfe. You sure about keeping her here? We've got one body too many for comfort. Comfort, Wolfe said, is not our currency. The killer believes the play. Concluded at 11:45. We shall convince him of an encore. The look on his face told me he already had the next move charted. I didn't like it, but I'd seen that expression before. It meant he was certain someone had underestimated him. Kramer returned, cigar in place, scowl ready. You'll both be available in the morning. We are always available, Wolfe said, though rarely useful. Kramer left without blessing us. The sound of engines faded and the house grew still again. I checked the clock on the wall, midnight sharp. Wolfe let out a long breath, the first real sign he was human tonight. Archie, pour me beer, then fetch a blanket for Miss Minton. She has ceased trembling, which suggests exhaustion. I did both. She accepted the blanket without speaking, eyes fixed on the curtains. I poured the beer and handed it over. Wolfe drank, eyes half closed. Saul, he said, return to your post. Whoever fired that shot believes the finale complete. If he returns to confirm it, I wish him observed, not arrested. Saul nodded once. Understood. When the door closed behind him, I turned back to Wolfe. What's next? He tapped the rim of his glass. Observation, Archie. The killer's script depends on my participation. He will not resist delivering the epilogue. And if his epilogue involves more bullets? Then, Wolfe said, we shall interrupt his performance with critique. Miss Minton whispered suddenly. You think he'll come back? I think, Wolfe said, he never left. Miss Minton's whisper hung in the air, fragile as cobweb thread, and Wolfe's reply seemed to thicken the room's shadows. The orchids gleamed faintly behind the curtains, their colors drowned by lamplight. I could feel the weight of the brownstone pressing in, not from fear, but from attention. Something was listening. I moved quietly toward the front window and pulled the curtain edge back an inch. The rain had stopped, but the street still shone like polished coal. Saul's sedan remained at the curb, engine off, a patient shadow. Nothing else stirred. "He's not in sight," I said. "That does not preclude his presence," Wolfe murmured. "Predators vanish most efficiently when near their prey." Miss Minton shuddered. "I can't bear it, just sitting here, waiting for him to strike again." "You mistake endurance for passivity," Wolfe said. "We are not waiting. We are drawing him nearer." "Like bait," I said, "which, incidentally, is still illegal without a license." He ignored me, which was fair, because he was right. The man who had orchestrated this drama, killing Dewar on cue, wouldn't walk away without applause. He'd made Wolfe his audience from the first note. He needed him to understand. The telephone broke the stillness again, a short ring this time. I crossed to it, half expecting the same clipped male voice. Instead, Saul's tone came low, but steady. "Archie, someone's in the alley, tall coat, hat brimmed down, watching your windows." "You see his face?" "Not yet. He's standing under the drain pipe, half in shadow. Looks like he's waiting for a signal." "Want me to move?" I looked at Wolfe. He shook his head. "Observe," he said. "Do not approach. We must know what signal he awaits." I relayed that. Saul's grunt came back through the line. "All right, I'll let him hang himself in the rain." I hung up. Miss Minton's hands twisted in her lap. "If he's out there, why not arrest him?" "Because," Wolfe said, "we require a confession before Kramer converts suspicion into custody. This killer is not impulsive. He requires recognition. He will come to deliver it himself." "That's comforting," I said. "Let's just hope he delivers it without express bullets." Wolfe didn't bother responding. His eyes were half closed, mind working in that silent geometry of his. I could almost see the lines connecting Larkin, Dewar, and the invisible point that hadn't yet declared itself. The floor creaked. I turned. Miss Minton had risen, pale, trembling, eyes fixed on the door. "I can't stay here," she whispered. "You don't understand. He told me once, in the gallery, that the worst lie was to pretend innocence. I think he meant me." "Sit down," I said. "You step outside and he'll prove his point with another bullet. I won't be his next message." I caught her arm before she reached the knob. She jerked free, but I tightened my grip. "Lady, you're already in his script. The only way you get out of it alive is by letting Wolfe write the ending." That stopped her. The fight drained from her face, and she let me guide her back to the chair. Wolfe finally opened his eyes. "Miss Minton," he said gently, "did Mr. Larkin ever accuse you, directly or otherwise, of deception?" She hesitated, then nodded. "He thought I was working with Yer behind his back. But I wasn't. Yer wanted to buy the sketches legitimately. Larkin, he wanted more. He said he'd found a way to sell the same design twice, to the Americans and to a foreign firm. I told him it was fraud." He laughed. Wolfe's voice softened. "So you confronted him?" "Yes. I said he'd destroy everything he'd built. He told me to stay out of it, that I'd thank him later. I left early that night." "And the next morning," I said, "he was dead." Her eyes filled. "You think I'm lying?" "I think everyone lies," I said. "The trick is figuring out why." Wolfe's tone sharpened. "Miss Minton, did anyone else know of that quarrel?" "Only one. Mr. Dewar. He overheard us in the gallery office." "Ah." Wolfe nodded slowly. "So our messenger's accusation. One of them lies now. Might have referred not to the living, but to a false witness. If Dewar lied about the content of that dispute, He sealed his fate by drawing attention to it. I said, "That's elegant, but there's still one man out there with a gun who thinks it's theater night." As if cued, a soft tap came from the rear door. 3 light knocks, deliberate. Wolfe's head turned. "Fritz?" No answer. I moved silently through the hall, hand near the holster. The kitchen light flickered from the wind outside, throwing long shadows over the tiled floor. I eased the back door open a few inches. A folded note rested against the threshold, dry despite the damp night. Whoever left it had done so seconds ago. I brought it back and set it on the desk. Wolfe didn't need instructions. He lifted it delicately with the tip of his penknife and unfolded it. Typed again, black ink slightly smudged. The woman must speak before midnight. Wolfe's brow arched. He accelerates his temper. Our killer desires climax. I checked the wall clock. 12:15. Midnight's already behind schedule. Wolfe turned the note over. Nothing on the back. He stared at it for a moment, then said, "He has miscalculated. His message arrived late. Therefore, he is near enough to hear us, but far enough to misjudge the hour." "You're saying he's watching right now?" "I am saying," Wolfe replied, "that he believes control absolute, and arrogance is proximity's twin." I started toward the front again, but Wolfe stopped me with a raised hand. "Archie?" "No. You will draw his fire. Instead, bring the floor lamp to the window." I frowned, but obeyed. He adjusted it so the light struck the curtain from behind, throwing our silhouettes faintly outward. "He must believe Miss Minton alone," he said. "Let him see her despair." Miss Minton stared at him. "You're using me as bait again?" "You are already bait, madam. I merely choose the pond." I positioned myself off to the side, revolver ready. The seconds dragged. Then a faint scrape sounded outside. Metal against stone. The outline of a figure appeared beyond the curtain, motionless, watching. Wolfe whispered, "Now, Archie." I yanked the curtain wide, and the light spilled out. The man recoiled, arm rising, gun glinting. My shot cracked before his did. The glass shattered again, his weapon clattered to the pavement, and Saul's shout echoed from the street. "Got him!" I was out the door in a breath, Wolfe's warning fading behind me. Saul had the man pinned against the lamp post, face half hidden under the dripping hat. Blood trickled from a graze on his temple, my bullet grazing courtesy. I pulled the gun from the ground. "Nice of you to stop by," I said. The man's eyes lifted, dark, unreadable. "He made me do it," he said. "Who?" "Wolfe." That gave me pause. "Try again," he smiled faintly. "He writes the endings." Saul tightened his grip. "He's babbling." "Maybe," I said, "but I've heard worse philosophies." We marched him back toward the brownstone. Inside, Wolfe was waiting, calm, immense, unshaken. The man blinked at him. "You see now, don't you? They all lied. I only corrected the record." "Your name?" Wolfe said. "Fenley," he answered. Miss Minton gasped. Wolfe inclined his head slightly, eyes gleaming. Then the curtain has risen on its final act. Saul's grip held firm on Fenley's collar while rainwater trailed down the man's cheek, carrying a smear of blood that looked too bright under the office light. Wolfe watched him like a hawk regarding a mouse that had volunteered for dinner. The air smelled of gun oil, wet wool, and something sour. Fear pretending to be courage. I nudged Fenley toward the red leather chair. "Have a seat, Mr. Conscience Correction Bureau." He sank down without protest, eyes darting between Wolfe, the gun in my hand, and the covered body of Dua. Miss Minton stood frozen beside the desk, a ghost in borrowed lamplight. "You've made quite the entrance," I told him. 3 murders, 6 telegrams, and now an accusation that my employer's the mastermind. That's a full resume. Fenley's smile was faint but steady. "You don't see it yet. None of you do. He's been writing this story from the beginning." Wolfe's fingers pressed together, forming that steeple that usually means someone's about to regret existing. "Enlighten me," he said. "You wanted truth, didn't you?" Fenley's voice had a strange calm, like someone reciting scripture. "They all lied. Larkin stole the designs. Yare financed him. Dewar sold them overseas, and she—" He looked at Miss Minton. "Made sure no one noticed. I only forced them to confess." "Through bullets," I said. "Inspirational method." "I didn't kill them," he said, eyes flicking toward me. "They died by their own guilt. I just gave them time to show it." "That's poetic," I said. "Also, homicidal nonsense." Wolfe's tone didn't shift. "Your name, sir. Fenley is a fiction." He laughed softly. "Of course it is. I took it from her story. The ghost husband, remember Clara? You said he'd come back one day to make everything right." Miss Minton shook her head, terrified. "I never—" "You did," he said. "At the cafe. You told me the only man who could stop Larkin was the one who didn't exist. So I became him." I looked at Wolfe. "He's not just playing dramatist. He's freelancing mythology." Wolfe ignored me. "You will describe your relationship to Mr. Larkin." Fenley's gaze dropped. "I was his draftsman before he found better patrons. When he started selling the prototypes, I objected. He laughed, called me sentimental. I warned him. When the first message arrived, the one sent to you, it was my warning to him. You intercepted it." "That's impressive," I said, predicting his death after he was already dead. His eyes flared. "I didn't know he was dead. Someone else moved faster. That's when I realized they were cleaning house. Yeah, Dewar, Minton, each of them covering the tracks. So I made the rest of the messages, to draw them into light. Except light came from a rifle barrel," I said. He looked at Dewar's shrouded body. "I didn't fire that shot." Saul snorted. "Sure. Somebody else shot the guy you promised would die, from a gun that happened to be yours." "I don't own a gun." "Convenient," I said. "You planning to deny the bullets too?" Wolfe's voice slid in like a blade. "Mr. Fenley, if your goal was confession, you achieved it poorly. A corpse cannot elaborate. You preferred control to revelation." Fenley's eyes sharpened. "Control? I lost control the moment you entered it. You enjoyed this. Every step, you wanted the next act, the next deduction, like turning pages of a book you already knew the ending to." Wolfe's nostrils flared, the faintest movement. "Your presumptions are absurd, but not irrelevant. Continue." "I wrote those messages to make you see," Fenley said. "You, the great Nero Wolfe, the man who never leaves his chair. I wanted to prove that even your logic bends when the world lies to you, that you can't stop death with words." "Phooey." Wolfe's voice cracked like a whip. "You are an egotist masquerading as prophet. You played judge and jury, not messenger, but the sentence you pronounce, you do not understand." Fenley leaned forward, defiant. "And you do?" "I understand obsession," Wolfe said. "It is the refuge of small men who mistake righteousness for intellect." The words hit hard. Fenley's calm cracked. "You think this was vanity? They killed ideas, truth itself. Larkin sold genius to murderers. Yare funded it. Dewar drew it. She concealed it. I stopped it." "By murdering them," Wolfe said. "I stopped them," Fenley snapped. "Call it what you like." The room fell still except for Miss Minton's unsteady breathing. I shifted my weight, ready in case he lunged, but he just stared at Wolfe, unblinking. Saul broke the silence. "You still haven't explained how you knew the exact minute Dewar got his bullet." "I didn't," Fenley said quietly. "The watch did. That earned him every pair of eyes in the room." "What watch?" I said. "The one on your desk." Wolfe's gaze sharpened. "Explain." Fenley smiled faintly. "It was rigged. The back plate held a timer, a signal transmitter. When it reached the marked minute, It sent a pulse. Someone outside took it as a cue. I moved fast, grabbing the velvet box. Wolfe nodded for me to open it. Inside, behind the gears, nestled a tiny coil and battery. I felt the hairs on my neck stiffen. "Well," I said, "I'll be damned." Wolfe's tone was ice. "So you conspired with another?" "No," Fenley said. "He used me too. I built the device for him, thought it was harmless. Just an experiment. He said he wanted to stage a demonstration of synchronization. I didn't know he'd—" "Who?" Wolfe demanded. Fenley hesitated. His hands clenched on the armrest. "Yair's partner, a man named Kershaw. American agent, pretending to be an investor. He wanted the designs for the defense board." Saul swore under his breath. "Kershaw was at Larkin's exhibition. I saw him in the papers after. Didn't he vanish?" "Yes," Wolfe said, thinking aloud. "And this would explain efficiency, state secrecy masquerading as moral crusade." Fenley shook his head. "No, you don't understand. He'll come for me next. He won't let anyone live who can name him." "Then," Wolfe said dryly, "he will be disappointed." "Because you'll protect me." "Because," Wolfe replied, "you have already named him." The phone rang again. I jumped to it. Kramer's voice came rough and breathless. "Goodwin, you got company inbound. We just traced a sedan from the gallery district. Driver's license to a Paul Kershaw. He's armed and he's headed your way." I looked at Wolfe. "Speak of the devil." Wolfe leaned back, satisfied. "Excellent. The play demands its final performer." I relayed Kramer's warning. Saul was already at the door, checking his weapon. Miss Minton stood rigid, staring at Fenley like she couldn't decide whether to pity or hate him. The sound of an engine outside made every nerve in the room go tight. Headlights swept across the curtains, then cut out. Wolfe's eyes flicked to me. "Archie, you and Mr. Panzer will intercept. Mr. Fenley will remain seated. Miss Minton, behind the cabinet, if you please." "You're not calling the police?" I asked. "I have," Wolfe said calmly. "All the police I need." I grabbed my revolver, met Saul's nod, and stepped into the hall. The front door loomed ahead, faint light slipping through the glass. The handle moved before we touched it. The door opened slowly. A man stepped in, broad, confident, gun low and ready. His face matched the old photographs. Square jaw, eyes that had seen too many justifications. "Mr. Wolfe," he said, voice even, "you have something of mine." I lifted the revolver, safety off. "You'll have to be more specific." "The witness," Kershaw said. "And the device." From behind me, Wolfe's voice came calm as rain. "Come in, Mr. Kershaw. The stage is yours." Kershaw stepped forward, the rain still glistening on his coat, but the eyes were steady. Military calm, the kind that didn't blink even at gunpoint. Saul's finger hovered over the trigger of his automatic, and mine wasn't far behind. Wolfe's voice carried across the space, quiet but perfectly balanced. "Do not waste effort posturing, Mr. Kershaw. My house is not a battlefield." Kershaw's gun stayed lowered, but firm. "I didn't come to fight, Wolfe. I came to clean up a mess. That would be convenient," I said, "if you hadn't been the janitor who spilled it." He turned his head slightly, those pale eyes scanning me like a ledger. "You talk too much." "Habit," I said. "What's yours? Homicide before breakfast." "Enough," Wolfe interjected. "Archie, remove his weapon." I moved forward slowly, watching for the twitch that precedes a fatal mistake. Kershaw's mouth tightened, but he didn't resist. When I had the gun, I set it on the desk next to the stopped watch. Wolfe gestured toward the empty chair opposite Fenley. "Sit. You will find conversation less terminal than your previous approach." Kershaw obeyed, not meekly, but with the precision of a man who'd been following orders all his life. "I'm not the villain here," he said evenly. "You've been misled." That Wolfe said, is an unpromising opening for a confession. Fenley rose half from his seat. You murdered them. Kershaw didn't glance at him. They were already dead men when they sold that design. Larkin leaked national defense schematics to a foreign buyer. Yeh financed it. Dewar made it readable. And you... His gaze cut toward Fenley. You sabotaged the recall investigation to hide your part. That's a lie. Fenley's voice broke. You told me to build the transmitter. You said it was an experiment. And you believed that? Kershaw said. Then you're as naive as you look. Wolfe's tone sliced through them both. Gentlemen, I'm not the State Department. I'm an observer of behavior. And yours, Mr. Kershaw, suggests a curious contradiction. Righteousness with powder burns. Kershaw met his eyes. Someone had to end it. You think courts would. They'd bury it under secrecy. This way at least it stopped. Stopped, Wolfe repeated softly. 3 corpses and a shattered watch. That is your measure of order restored. I did what was necessary. And convenient, Wolfe said. A justification so old it predates decency. The words landed like stones. Kershaw's hands clenched. You have no idea what those plans were for. If they'd been sold, thousands could have died. An admirable calculation, Wolfe murmured. The arithmetics of murder. I said, you want a medal, or are we still in confession mode? Kershaw's look could have frozen the Hudson. You think this is a game? No, I said, but you've been playing it like chess with live ammunition. Wolfe leaned back, eyes narrowing. Your logic, Mr. Kershaw, requires one last premise, that I will not expose you. Unfortunately for you, that is false. You think anyone will believe you. I think, Wolfe said, that the police already follow your trail. You were unwise to approach this house while under pursuit. Kershaw froze for half a second, long enough for me to recognize surprise, the first crack in his armor. I let it register. Kramer's on his way, I said. He even said your name with feeling. For the first time, Kershaw looked less certain. Then you'll all go down with me. His hand twitched toward the desk. Don't, I said. The revolver was leveled before he reached the halfway point. Saul shifted his stance, gun raised. Fenley blurted, He can't kill us here. The lights went out. The sudden dark swallowed sound. Miss Minton screamed. Something crashed. Wood against floor. I swung toward the movement, caught a shadow diving past the window frame. Wolfe's voice came through the dark, steady as a beacon. Archie, Saul. Here. I moved fast, shoulder to shoulder with Saul. The faint glow from the street filtered through the shattered pane. Kershaw's shape was gone. I lunged for the switchboard, slapped the emergency breaker. The lamps flared back to life, harsh and white. The front door stood wide open, curtains whipping from the draft. Saul ran first. I followed, down the steps into the slick street. The rain had stopped, leaving the pavement gleaming under streetlights. Kershaw was halfway across, heading toward a dark coupe idling at the corner. Stop! Saul shouted. His gun barked once. The car roared to life. I fired, saw glass shatter, but the coupe kept moving, fishtailing hard before tearing east. Sirens wailed in the distance. I lowered the revolver, breath sharp in my chest. Well, he's not punctual, but he's determined. Saul wiped his brow. He'll ditch the car 2 blocks out. Want me to follow? No, I said. Kramer's got the cavalry inbound. Let him earn his pay. We walked back inside. Miss Minton was still shaking, Fritz hovering beside her with a towel like it could ward off destiny. Fenley sat motionless, staring at the floor. Wolfe hadn't moved from his chair, his bulk a monument to unflappable thought. He's gone? He asked. For now, I said. Good. He will return. I frowned. That's optimism I can live without. He cannot leave unfinished, Wolfe said. He must reclaim control, as all zealots must, and when he does, he will find it occupied. Fenley looked up, his face hollow. You don't understand. He won't stop. He thinks he's serving justice. Then we shall provide him the courtesy of witnessing it fail, Wolfe said. Archie, the watch mechanism, give it to me. I set the device on his desk. He pried open the casing again, careful fingers finding a second compartment beneath the coil. Inside, pressed against the metal, was a strip of thin film no larger than a postage stamp. Microphotography, he said. Blueprint fragments. Miss Minton gasped. The designs! Yes, Wolfe said. Larkin concealed them here. When Kershaw realized that, he turned messenger into assassin. His morality was simply logistics with cleaner syntax. Then he came tonight to recover them, I said. Indeed, Wolfe replied. And in fleeing, he leaves us holding both proof and motive. Kramer will find that gratifying. I exhaled. You're counting on him to catch Kershaw. No, Wolfe said. I'm counting on Kershaw's vanity. He believes himself misunderstood. Such men always return to explain. Miss Minton's eyes widened. You mean he'll come back here? Yes, Wolfe said calmly. And when he does, he will find reason waiting for him, armed with law. I looked toward the door, where rain still dripped from the awning. You'd better hope he knocks first. Wolfe leaned back, half closing his eyes. He will. It is the one courtesy he still believes in. The knock came sooner than I liked. 3 dull raps that echoed through the brownstone like an argument waiting for a witness. Wolfe's eyes opened. No surprise in them, just calculation. He set the watch and film aside with deliberate precision. Archie, he said quietly, open the door. Do not be heroic. Heroic's not in the job description, I muttered, moving toward the vestibule. Saul had already taken up position behind the curtain, gun ready. Miss Minton sat rigid, hands gripping the armrests like they were all that kept her from dissolving. Fenley hadn't moved an inch. He looked carved from exhaustion. The hallway stretched too long, the kind that eats sound. I opened the door halfway, leaving the chain on. A shape filled the space. Kershaw, face drawn tight, eyes fever bright. He had ditched the coat, traded it for a rain-soaked trench, and the gun was back in his hand, steady as ever. Step aside, Goodwin. Sure, I said. Once you explain whether you're here for redemption or another target practice. Both, he said, voice low. Where is it? Where's what? The film, he snapped. You think I don't know Wolfe found it? Hand it over, or I swear... Mr. Kershaw. Wolfe's voice floated from the office, calm as a metronome. If you intend to threaten me, do come inside. The hallway lacks acoustics. Kershaw hesitated, then pushed the door wider. Saul moved from the shadows like a ghost, gun raised. Easy, he said. Kershaw froze, a flicker of irritation crossing his face. You think you can stop this? Already have, I said, kicking the door shut behind him. Welcome to the encore. He didn't answer. His eyes locked on Wolfe, who hadn't risen from his chair but looked every inch the man in charge of gravity. You've interfered enough, Kershaw said. That material belongs to the United States government, classified property. Which branch of government precisely? Wolfe asked. The one that manufactures assassinations or the one that condemns them? Kershaw's jaw tightened. You don't understand what you're playing with. On the contrary, Wolfe said. I understand perfectly. The Larkin design was an early prototype of a propulsion vector. Military, untested, unstable. You feared its sale abroad, so you engineered a purge. That's not what happened. No. Wolfe's tone was soft, inviting. Then enlighten me. They were going to sell it to a rival contractor, not a foreign power, Kershaw said, voice sharp with the kind of anger that hides regret. That design could have destabilized defense bids across half the industry. Billions wasted. I was ordered to stop them, quietly. But then Larkin changed his mind. Started blackmailing Yer. And the others panicked, I said. You solved the problem with a bullet and a moral alibi. Kershaw's face hardened. I followed protocol. Protocol doesn't usually involve poetry typed on envelopes, Wolfe said. Kershaw's eyes flicked toward Fenley. That was his doing. He sent those messages to bait me, to make me look like the killer. You think I wanted any of this public? Fenley stood, trembling but defiant. You used me. You told me it was patriotic. It was, Kershaw said flatly, until you decided guilt looked better in ink. Miss Minton's voice sliced through them both. And Larkin? Did patriotism stop his heart too? Kershaw turned, and for a second, something human flickered behind his stare. Larkin overdosed. He wasn't supposed to die. It was supposed to be clean. Phooey, Wolfe said. There is no clean death arranged by bureaucrats, only convenience disguised as policy. The tension coiled tighter, the air practically humming. I could see Saul edging half an inch to the right, angling for cover without breaking sight line. Enough talk, Kershaw said. Give me the film. You can tell Kramer whatever story suits your conscience. Kramer, I said. You might want to check the street before banking on that. He's likely halfway up the block with a squad. Kershaw's gaze flickered toward the window, just long enough for Wolfe to strike, not with movement, but with words. You have misunderstood your problem, Mr. Kershaw. You imagine this is about retrieval. It is not. It is about narrative control. You have killed to preserve a secret. Now the secret has chosen to reveal you. Kershaw's grip faltered. The muzzle wavered a hair. You think anyone will believe a word of this? They need not, Wolfe said. Kramer requires evidence, not faith, and you have kindly left both. I caught the cue. You mean the transmitter? Precisely, Wolfe said, and the residue on your gloves will match the circuitry residue inside the watch. Kershaw's composure cracked. You can't prove. Already proven, Wolfe said. The coil bears solder of a unique alloy used only in government prototypes. You delivered yourself the moment you demanded its return. The silence that followed was broken only by the faint creak of floorboards behind me. Then came the pounding on the door, firm, official, and perfectly timed. Police, open up! Kershaw's eyes darted toward it, calculation flashing across his face. You can't turn this into a circus. Too late, I said. Tickets already sold. He made a sudden move toward the desk. Saul fired once. Clean warning shot into the wall. The gun fell from Kershaw's hand, clattering against the wood. Wolfe didn't flinch. Archie, he said. Kindly invite Lieutenant Kramer to join us. I did, unlocking the door just as Kramer stormed in, trench coat flying, cigar clamped between his teeth. 2 uniforms followed, guns out, eyes darting. What in blazes? He stopped mid-step, taking in Kershaw, the bodies, the smoke. You couldn't wait 5 minutes. He couldn't, I said, nodding toward Kershaw. We were busy hosting the Defense Department's homicidal cleanup crew. Kramer looked at Wolfe. You got proof of that, or just another bedtime theory? Wolfe gestured to the desk. There you will find a watch containing both the transmitter that summoned death and the microfilm that inspired it. I assume your laboratory will be delighted. Kramer puffed once on the cigar, eyes narrowing. And him? Federal operative, Wolfe said. Unregistered tonight, I presume? Kershaw straightened, dignity peeling off him in strips. You can't arrest me. This operation's classified. Kramer blew a stream of smoke toward the ceiling. Not anymore, he nodded to the uniforms. Take him. Kershaw didn't resist. As they led him out, he turned once toward Wolfe. You think this ends here? It doesn't. Someone will pick up where I left off. Wolfe's reply was almost kind. No doubt, but you will not be here to watch. The door shut behind them, the echo lingering like an aftertaste. The room felt lighter, but not cleaner. Wolfe reached for his beer. Saul holstered his weapon and exhaled. That was tidy. Too tidy, I said. I liked it better when people only died for money. Miss Minton was crying softly again, this time from release, not terror. Wolfe addressed her without looking up. You're free of suspicion, Miss Minton, and of employment, should you still work in galleries that manufacture sin. She nodded faintly. Fenley slumped back in his chair, empty of fight. I leaned against the door, letting the night's fatigue catch up. So that's it? Curtain down? Nearly, Wolfe said, sipping. The government will retrieve its secrets, the police their headlines, and I, he sighed, shall retrieve sleep. You forgot one thing, I said. Your fee. He smiled, faint and fleeting. I expect Mr. Kershaw's department will provide it indirectly through increased taxation. That will suffice. I looked at the broken window, the stopped watch, and the shadows beyond. You really think it's over? Over, Wolfe said. Nothing ends, Archie. It merely becomes precedent. The door shut behind Kramer's squad, and the silence they left behind was the first honest thing all night. Wolfe sat back, eyes half-lidded, tracing invisible geometry in the air. The orchids whispered faintly in the corner, still alive, still smug. I poured 2 fingers of rye into a glass and offered it. He waved it off for his beer instead. Figures. Miss Minton sat quietly near the window, hair damp, face pale but composed. Fenley hadn't spoken since Kershaw's exit. He looked like someone who had just discovered that moral crusades are hell on conscience. You're awfully calm for a man who's been framed as the federal government's next scandal headline, I said. Wolfe's eyes opened. Calm, Archie, is not optional when intellect must resume its duties. He set the beer down and leaned forward slightly. Do you know why Kershaw failed? Besides picking a house with bulletproof smugness? Because he mistook cause for control. He believed he could dictate reality through coercion, as though truth were a weapon. But truth resists ownership. It simply waits to be found. Miss Minton spoke softly. Then it's over? Over, Wolfe said, is for newspapers. What remains is consequence. Fenley stirred, his voice low. They'll hang me too, won't they? For the messages, for helping him build the device. Wolfe regarded him coolly. I do not legislate, but I suspect the district attorney will distinguish between delusion and treason. Your cooperation will determine the rest. He nodded weakly, rubbing his temples. I didn't want anyone to die. I just wanted to scare them, to make them admit what they'd done. That, I said, makes you guilty of naivety, not murder. The rest's up to Kramer. Wolfe grunted. Kramer's virtues are limited, but he is rarely unjust. The greater puzzle lies elsewhere. Where? In motive, always, Wolfe said. Every act tonight, Larkin's fraud, Yare's greed, Dewar's cowardice, Kershaw's zeal, Fenley's self-justification, stems from the same corruption, the arrogance of moral certainty. People imagine themselves agents of justice, then manufacture crimes to justify the role. That's cheerful, I said. What's that make us, audience or accomplices? Neither, he said. We are custodians of proportion. It is an unpleasant occupation, but necessary. I smiled. I'll get that embroidered on a pillow. He ignored me, turning instead toward Miss Minton. You, madam, will resume your life tomorrow. I recommend obscurity for a year. It tends to sharpen gratitude. She managed a small, grateful nod. Thank you, Mr. Wolfe. Do not thank me. Gratitude, like guilt, is rarely productive. Archie, telephone Mrs. Belsley at the Gazette. Tell her she may print that the East 35th affair has concluded with the apprehension of a government agent and the recovery of classified material. Leave out adjectives. She adds enough of her own. I picked up the receiver but paused. That's all she gets? No headline about you solving what half of Washington couldn't. Wolfe's mouth twitched, which for him was a laugh. Archie, fame is for men who require reassurance. I require order. Besides, I would not wish to increase Kramer's indigestion. I made the call anyway. Mrs. Belsley practically purred down the line, scribbling like a cat with new yarn. When I hung up, Wolfe was already leaning back again, eyes shut, hands folded over his stomach. A king resting after a small, tidy war. Saul reappeared from the hall, coat on, hat in hand. Kramer wants a written statement tomorrow. He said to tell you it's for formality, not fun. Tell him, Wolfe said without opening his eyes, that formality is the only virtue we share. Saul's grin was brief. Good night, boss. Good night. When he was gone, the house sank back into its familiar rhythm. The low hum of city outside, the faint clink from Fritz tidying the kitchen, the orchids breathing in their humid corner. The world was slowly remembering itself. I walked to the window and looked down. Rain washed the pavement clean again, as though the night had decided to wipe its fingerprints. You know, I said, I almost believed Kershaw back there. He had the conviction of a man who thinks he's saving the world. Conviction, Wolfe said, eyes still closed, is the perfume of ignorance. It conceals rot with purpose. That's poetic. It's practical, he said. Every zealot believes himself immaculate. The detective's task is simply to find the dirt. I looked at him, round, immovable, endlessly exasperating, and felt the faint, reluctant tug of respect. Well, I said, you found it. Again. He opened one eye. Naturally. Dirt is obedient to gravity, Archie. It always settles where I am. That one got a laugh out of me. Fritz peeked from the doorway, uncertain whether the danger had passed. Wolfe waved him off. Bring beer and sandwiches. The night has been disordered. Fritz vanished gratefully toward the kitchen. Miss Minton rose, voice trembling but clear. Mr. Wolfe, thank you. For everything. He inclined his head, which in his language was a full bow. Good night, Miss Minton. May you find peace somewhere less articulate. She smiled faintly and left. The door closed softly behind her. I poured myself another rye, leaned against the desk, and watched Wolfe settle back with his beer, content as a planet resuming orbit. So, I said, what headline do I get to write in the notebook? He didn't open his eyes. None. The case is closed. The lesson remains. Which is, he took a slow sip, savoring it like punctuation, that no lie survives its architect. Sooner or later, the truth inherits the deed. I raised my glass to that. And the rent's always due on East 35th. He grunted, which meant agreement. The clock ticked past 1. The rain eased. The night, having exhausted its drama, finally went quiet.